give us a sign once we are here. Good evening, everyone. We are here today for the book launch of Shrabani Basu. And amongst us, we also have Baman Irani, sir. So we are gathered here today for the book, The Mystery of the Parsee Lawyer. And before we, ask Baman sir and Shrabani to have the conversation ahead, let me formally introduce Shrabani Basu. She is an author and a journalist. She was born in Cal in Kolkata and grew up in Dhaka, Kathmandu, and Delhi. So I guess that's also visible through her books and writings. The kind of worlds which she has, lived in is, really portrayed in the books as well. Her books include Victoria and Abdul, the extraordinary true story of the Queen's closest confidant, now a major motion picture. You must have seen June for King and Another Country, Indian Soldiers on the Western Front, which is based on a period 1914-1918. Apart from it, she has written on Spy Princes, the life of Noor Inayat Khan. So thanks for bringing that, piece up of the history which a lot of people were not aware of. And if you see, she has also set up the Noor Inayat Khan Memorial Trust and campaigned for a memorial for the Second World War heroine, which was unveiled by none other than Princess Anne in London in November 2012. Baman sir, everyone knows him. We have loved him for his movies and the piece of humor, the acumen which he brings to the movies. So thanks to you, sir. Your roles have been iconic, and it's really pleasure to have you with us. He's an acclaimed and award-winning Indian theatre and Bollywood film actor. He's known for his work in a lot of films which we have really enjoyed, Jolly LLB, Three Idiots, Sanju, and many more. Apart from it, which others might not know, he's also a singer and a photographer. So thank you. And about the book, just to start with, so the book is just being, reaching the stores, and it's also available on www.crossword.in. It's considered to be like a Sherlockian adventure, and it is already released in US, UK, and now available at your nearest bookstore, Crossword. And it is really getting some great reviews. So without taking much time, I would request Shrabani and Baban sir to take the conversation ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Harshit.
you. Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Thank you, Baban, for being here for this. I'm really looking forward to our chat. So fire away.
So much fun. So much fun. First of all, congratulations, Shrabani. So nice to be here. Thanks for asking me to do this. And one of the reasons which actually grabbed me was and why I wanted to do this conversation with you was about you obviously have some connection with the Parsees. Otherwise, why would I be having this conversation with you? Tell me. So I'm going.
Well,
I'm pulling your leg. I'm pulling. Hold it. So Harshal said you were born in Cal, and then you grew up in Kathmandu and Dhaka, and then Delhi. So where are the Parsees in all of this?
they're everywhere, aren't they? Because I have so
You
many
know there are
Parsi
only
friends.
64,000 Parsees left on the planet.
But such
And
precious Parsi.
64,000 minus one, this Parsee lawyer became Christian in England, didn't he? Right?
Well, he's gone now. But
He's
but
gone now.
Parsis have achieved so much. I've just always been such an admirer of the Parsi community. Music, you just think Zubin Mehta, you think Freddie Mercury, you think business. You've got all the Tatas, and you think science. I mean, you guys are there everywhere. Acting, music, talent, such talent.
Yeah, well, how did you, what is the affinity with the Parsee community and yourself, Shrabani?
Oh, and not a personal connection apart from my friends, of course. But this case was interesting to me because Shapuji obviously he's a Parsee, but it was also interesting. Apart from the Arthur Conan Doyle factor, shall I just give a little brief about what the book is
Before you
about?
go on, I always thought that Arthur Conan Doyle was Parsee, honestly. But no, it is not. That's not.
Of course he was.
He
was Indian as well. We claim
Indian
everybody.
Yeah, so Shrabani, if you don't stop me, I'm going to go on and on. But go ahead. Give us a little
We
background
claim
how it all
everybody.
came.
Yeah, so actually the story begins, and I'm so happy that we are launching this book from Mumbai because the story begins, but I will call it Bombay because it is set when it was called Bombay. Shapurji is from Bombay. He went to Elphinstone College and he was only 15 years old. Shapurji is the father of our Parsee lawyer. So he was part of this group that were really, targeted by the missionaries because they were westernized Parsees, and they were targeted for conversion. So this teenager, I see it as a bit of brainwashing that happened. And there was a group of other Parsees as well. And suddenly they said, our faith is terrible. We want to convert. And they land up there. And there is Reverend Wilson. And they go to him and they want to convert. So this conversion of these four Parsees from Elphinstone College influences Shapurji. He wants to convert. There's a storm, so we won't go into all that, but he does convert. He becomes a Christian. His family, he runs away from home, his house in Colaba, and then he leaves. He trains a bit, and then he writes a dictionary, Gujarati English dictionary, and he sells it. And with that money, he buys a ticket to go to London, to go to England, because he wants to train to be a priest. So that's where his journey begins. Now, his journey is in 1866. He reaches England, he becomes a priest, and then he meets, Charlotte. He falls in love with her, so he has a white wife. She's also the daughter of a vicar, so it's all very much church circles. And then he moves to this little mining village of Great Worley. It's set in the Midlands in a place called Staffordshire, and he becomes the vicar of Great Worley. So
Oh,
this vicar, he's the first South Asian vicar in England. And in 1876, George is also born. So he has a son and then he has two other children. But the focus of our story is, of course, George Italgi, the mysterious Parsi lawyer.
so that's the story of Shapurji and George.
Mm-hmm.
And in Greater Worli, it sounds like, one of the new areas in Bombay, Upper Worli, Greater Worli,
Wali Seaface.
anyway. Worli Seaface, yeah. But
Exactly.
I want to know, how did you stumble upon, and why did you think that this story needs to be
Mm-hmm.
told? Where did you stumble upon it, and how
Mm-hmm.
was it that you thought it would make a great reading? How
So
long did it
I
stew
knew
in your
about,
head, or was it
oh,
immediate, or?
yep, yep. It stood in my head for a long time because I knew about George. I knew of George through Arthur Conan Doyle. I knew that Arthur Conan Doyle had investigated only one case personally in his whole life, and that case related to an Indian. So that always intrigued me. I love doing these stories about Indians who've been forgotten in history. Just Noor Inayat Khan was one person, but who played a role, a major role. So there was, in Victoria and Abdul, I wrote about Abdul Karim. So I dragged this man who nobody knew about and put him up there. And then he's looking down from Leicester Square at the rest of the world. So, his story was definitely out there. So I love doing these stories. It's what drives me. And so I knew about George. It took a while. I finished all my other books. Meanwhile, there was another novel that was published, which was sort of based on this. It was written by Julian Barnes. It was fiction. So I said, oh, well, what do I do now? So I sort of parked that. And then I thought, in 2015, I saw this little newspaper item about an auction of letters from Arthur Conan Doyle to the chief of police of this area, Staffordshire
Right,
Police. And it was
right.
about the George Italgi case. And I said, okay, there's material there. So, that's when
Wow.
I started. And it's taken 5 years, but we're out there. But I do want to tell our viewers, because most of you don't know what this is about. What is this case that happened, this famous case? So I'll just summarize that.
No, don't tell them.
Basically,
Tell them to read the book.
no, I won't
Okay.
tell them. No, but I must
No,
tell
I
them.
want to say
I
something. I
won't
want to say
solve
something about
it.
writers. Writers
Yeah,
who get
what?
so close to their
Yeah, yeah.
characters, and it was so nicely and so organically that you said, "I knew Arthur Conan Doyle and George," as if you knew them personally, and that's so wonderful to know your characters at such close quarters. That felt so nice when you said that. But
Oh,
tell us a little more, Shrabani.
yeah. So you live with your characters. You do get to know them so much. You enter their
Exactly.
world when you write about them. So what happened in Great Worley is that, as we said, there is this brown man with a very pronounced Indian accent, Shapurji Adalji, preaching to a white parish. So you can imagine the conflict. He has a white wife. He has three, what they call half-caste children, three brown children. So the village is immediately suspicious. And now they get hate mail, they get anonymous letters. When George is just 12, this family is just, bombarded with graffiti, hate mail, the works. Then time passes. But in 1903, something sinister happens in this village. This little mining village is suddenly somebody's coming at night and mutilating horses, and they are slashing their stomachs and leaving them to die in the field. It's really gruesome, and nobody knows who it is. The police can't catch him. Totally inefficient. 6 months have gone. More and more cattle lying around. They don't know who it is. People are terrified. Rumor mills start flying, and of course, who do they suspect? It's the Indian family in the village, this brown man. And George Idalji is a slightly strange looking fellow because he's very myopic. So his eyes are bulgy and he's dark, obviously. He's dark skin. He's a loner. He walks alone in the forest. He has no friends. He leads a really boring life. He goes to Birmingham to work, comes back on the train, does nothing, has no friends, doesn't go to the pub. So immediately he stands out. And, so he is arrested for this crime, tried, the trial lasts 4 days, 55 minutes, the jury says guilty, and he's given 7 years imprisonment.
Wow.
And Baman, at this stage, I want you to read a little, just to give an atmosphere, a little bit about what the press, I'm a journalist myself, but we know how the tabloid media and the other media report these cases, We've all been hearing of late Meghan Markle and Harry, making the news. So, given that background, present, but this is 100 years back. If you go to page 120.
125, I'm ready, Shrabani, as requested.
Go for it.
Always ready to,
Read us this dramatic.
I'd just like to add, and when I come back after this little thing, this is, of course, the press and their perception. There's no fact in here. I read what you asked me to read. There's no fact. It's only perception. There's no truth, and this is what their view of the Orient, the Oriental is, or was, or probably still is in many ways. So let me read. All right. The next day, the Daily Mail reported, those who closely studied this extraordinary criminal in the dock would have no doubt that he is a degenerate of the worst type. His jaw and mouth are those of a man of a very debased life. Idalji has also gained for himself the reputation of being a lover of mystery, another Oriental trait, and one that goes far to explain the anonymous letters. Love of mystery rather than bloodlust was, according to the Crown, the predisposing motive. The Birmingham Daily Gazette, reflecting on the extraordinary nature of this crime and the circumstances of the accused, ventured, the explanation of the choice is probably to be found in the circumstance that Idalji is of Eastern extraction. The subtle Eastern mind loves a mystery and is vain. The Eastern mind is satisfied with its secret. The Midland Express concluded, we are glad to think that the district of Great Worley and the country is safe from such a monster for several years to come. Within weeks, George, the nondescript, myopic lawyer from Great Worley, had been turned by the media into a monster and a degenerate, whose very appearance betrayed the horror of his race and its dark, mysterious ways. Well,
just tells you, doesn't it?
Yesterday, and it would have read with as much resonance.
Absolutely. So, in fact, that's what, while I was researching this, I felt this happened over 100 years ago. My goodness, this is still happening now. But so let's move with the story. What happens now is, of course, he's found guilty. He's imprisoned. He's imprisoned for 7 years. But after 3 years, he's released on parole. But he's been struck off the solicitor's rolls. He doesn't have a job. He's too scared to go back to live in Great Worley because he says if another cattle is killed again, they'll stick me in there. So he goes to London, he hates. And then he doesn't know what to do. So he writes, this Parsee young boy writes to Arthur Conan Doyle and says, he's only 28, in case I forgot to mention that. So he writes that you're the only one. He's read his books. In prison, actually, he read Sherlock Holmes, Hound of Baskerville. And then he says, you're the only one who can clear my name. You can investigate this case. And so we need Sherlock Holmes to get into this mystery. And Arthur
Wow.
Conan Doyle says, yes, he rises to the occasion and he's going to, support George Adalji. He's going to fight his case. He's going to investigate it. And he's going to fight this miscarriage of justice. It's a big thing. The English, he's also a person of empire. He strongly believes in the empire. But for them, empire means we are bringing democracy, civilization, justice to the world. So how can, Britain not give this justice to this man? So he really fights that battle. And he says, he compares it to the Dreyfus affair in France, where a Jew was selected and, imprisoned for something he hadn't done just because he was a Jew. And he says, this is England's Dreyfus affair. That happened with a Jew. This has happened with a Parsee. So, his religion, him being Parsee, sort of is at the center of this whole case. Apart from him being an Oriental, as they say, an Indian, it's this Parsee religion, which they can't understand.
Right.
And all they know is they're worshippers of the sun, and they think somewhere in their minds they have it that they go out and sacrifice cattle. It's totally bizarre. It's ignorant. But this is fed into them from these stories of the Thuggy cults, that they've gone out, they sacrifice to Ma Kali, the Hindus are doing it. There's a blurring of all these lines, and they see Indians as being of this type,
They just went for it with their perception of what they thought.
Exactly.
I'll go back to the question of theme. Well, one of the themes that just jumped out to me from what I just read was it makes it so contemporary. There's a contemporary consciousness to the way the press, I'm sorry to accuse over here, just paints people with one brush. Okay, so if you are brown, black, whatever you are, you are who you are, or who you are, who we think you are. Apart from the contemporary consciousness of that fact, what is it thematically about the characters that moved you the most while writing it?
Well, when I read about how this Shapurji, I think a book could be written on just Shapurji. He's so interesting, the father, and how he then keeps fighting. So he himself has rejected his Parsi faith. He's come here to this country and he thinks this is civilization, and then he's rejected by this civilization as well. So he's stuck in the middle, this conflict that's going on. So I found him really interesting. George, of course, you just feel so sorry for this, sort of lonely, awkward 12-year-old who's getting hate mail saying, we're going to kill your son, stuff like that. And then he goes on. But he's a fighter. I mean, hats off to him for writing to Arthur Conan Doyle. Hats off to him for becoming a friend of, Arthur Conan Doyle. How many people have the guts to do that? He goes to him. And Arthur Conan Doyle, when he gets married, it's all in the book. One of the guests at his wedding is George Adalji, standing quietly in a corner with a present.
Everyone else's wedding for some reason. They don't get married themselves, but they land up at everybody else's weddings. Yeah. So that's an interesting little tidbit to know that a Parsee was there at Arthur Conan Doyle's wedding. And tell me more. I'm dying to know more about what thematically moved you. What was
well, it's the mystery element, of course. I've always loved. Who doesn't love a good Sherlock Holmes mystery? I can sit there. My guilty secret is sitting curled up in bed on Sunday afternoons watching, replays of Hound of Baskerville. So that's something we love. Everyone loves a mystery. Who doesn't love a mystery set in a small English village? I mean, that's just waiting, crying out to be told. So Arthur Conan Doyle's investigation in the case. I then go. In this book, I found new material from police records, because that's what I do. I write nonfiction. So I found the conflict between the police chief and Arthur Conan Doyle, and the way they, these two men, big men, he's The police chief is a total imperialist, son of the Earl of Lichfield, lives in a grand estate, hates this brown family in the village, calls Shapurji the Hindu vicar because that's what he is, and hates his white wife for marrying him. So he is just not going to let Arthur Conan Doyle solve this case. He sets up false traps for him. He leads him down, wrong way. So this whole intrigue was fascinating. So I have then gone on Arthur Conan. Arthur Conan Doyle is investigating this, and what I have done is I've gone on Arthur Conan Doyle's trail, finding out what he does, how he's solving the case, where he trips up, what Anson is doing. So there's a lot of action. There's a lot of twists and turns, and it's a
there must
mystery.
be. Yeah, I must say, I have to tell you, and I don't want to give out too much. I've read
No.
half of it. It's very intriguing, no question about it. As the first, what's this version that I have? It's called a bound manuscript. So at some point
Yes.
when I come to London, you'll sign this for me.
Of
I wanted to
course,
say something.
you'll get the real book. So it looks very much like the real book,
Believe
but it's
me,
just
I'm
it's a
getting a
digital
little
copy.
emotional with this one. This is also a real book. It's also okay.
Right.
So the next thing that I needed to ask you was,
Mm-hmm.
this is not fiction. This is fact.
Yeah.
So how would one describe this book?
This is not
fiction based on fact, or all fact,
No.
and how much of it is fiction? The drama, I'm sure there's a lot of drama. We weren't there for it. It comes out of letters and articles. We weren't there. So how do you meld and mix this little bit of fact with fiction? Not fiction, drama. Let me not use the
So
word fiction.
there's no fiction in it at all. Everything
Right.
is researched, over various libraries,
I have no doubt
archives.
about that. I have no doubt about that. I'm
but
saying, how
it
does
is
one bring in drama?
Yeah, so it is the narrative is what, once you've got all the facts and then you distill it and you structure it. It's very much like any book or film, you're familiar with that structure. How do we distill this? Where do I begin this story? Where do I go in? Flashbacks, whatever. It's a book is almost, written like that as well. So that is the writing style. It is narrative. Everything in the letters is so dramatic that you just write up the drama. That's all. It's what I do in Victoria and Abdul as well. That is based on letters and documents. And it came out as, such a dramatic book because there are fights, there's racism, there's everything going on. And the same is true for this. So here we are going on a trail. There's Arthur Conan Doyle. He's wearing Sherlock Holmes' hat, but he is on the, he's on this investigation trail. He goes to the site of the crime. He walks in this field at night and he picks up the soil and he's testing the soil. This is not the right soil that was on the boot. He's like, his brain is forensic. He's making forensic notes. And then he writes this piece in the Daily Telegraph saying, it is literally his defense of George Adalji. And when you think about it, it's incredible.
So you read a lot of letters for people who've written letters to each other.
Yes.
And surely it can't be that easy. You can't read a bunch of letters and say, okay, I'll write you a book. Surely it can't be that easy. So what I'm planning to do is you write a whole bunch of letters to you. Maybe 10 years from now, you can write a book. I don't know. I'm taking a long shot here. It's not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea. The only thing I worry about, and I'm quite happy that, okay, I'm in my 50s now, because now it's all emails. Who writes letters anymore? We've lost that. We're going to lose such a beautiful archive. Coming historians, I don't know what they'll do. Go on emails.
Coming from two people who are sitting and talking across a Zoom camera, I mean, we shouldn't be complaining. Right?
We should. But, holding a letter written by Arthur Conan Doyle with his handwriting, his signature, his corrections on the side, holding a letter by Queen Victoria. She would always have these outlines of black, and her writing got worse over the years, By the end, you can barely read her handwriting. But that thrill of finding this letter and holding it in your hand, email doesn't do it.
I don't like writing emails. I write letters, even though my handwriting has gone from bad to almost medical doctor style. But I write. I think it's nicer to write. It just
that's lovely.
Feels better.
That is so nice. Yeah, I think we all need to write a little bit more. Bring back those Parker pens and fountain pens and write, because just the slowness of it. Otherwise, you're just clicking, aren't you? You're just clicking in a mad, frankly. I think you like everyone wants to slow down in the world. I think we should start writing, and that
Let's
would
slow
slow us
down.
down.
Let's go on talking for the next 4 or 5 hours, Shrabani. Let's
No,
slow this
how are
down.
we doing for time? Do we have to take questions from the others?
Yeah, Harshil, are you around?
Do we need?
Yes, so great, and really thought like the conversation should go on. Didn't want it
Yeah,
to
we
disturb the
can
flow
go
of
on.
the
Yeah, we
really
can go
enjoyed
on.
it. Well brought, Baman sir. Like when you said because it's only letters, and how could you bring the drama, or how could you bring the conversations which they might have had into picture? So great job,
Mhm,
Shabani, to make this
mhm.
entire
Yeah, it can't be
piece.
that easy, right, Harshil? You can't say read a bunch of letters. I'm ready to write a book. So I think hats
Yes.
off, Shrabani.
Oh, thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
But it's also not just letters. It's like I go
Yeah,
into the
article.
Home Office files. So there's
Of
the
course, of
trial.
course,
You have the
of
whole
course.
trial, the manuscript of the trial. I mean, Baba, you've
No,
done
what I
these
meant is the
courts.
letters are
Yeah,
representative
yeah.
of the research that you've
Of
done.
course,
So
of course.
you know what I
And
mean. Yeah,
trial scenes. My goodness, you've done lawyers in your time, haven't you? So there's nothing
yeah,
like a trial scene. It just there's witnesses coming, and so you have the full account of the trial scenes, and they are so
right,
easy and dramatic to
right.
sort of bring in the picture. The evidence that's produced, which is so flimsy. One shoe, one coat with 29 horsehairs on it. One shoe. The
And his bulgy
circumstantial
eyes.
evidence.
His
Yeah,
bulgy
sorry.
eyes are evidence.
His budgie eyes. Well,
He's
that's what Arthur Conan Doyle says when he first meets him. It's a very again that is a dramatic meeting. He makes this appointment and they go. So they meet at this hotel, the Charing Cross Hotel, in near Trafalgar Square. And Arthur Conan Doyle is a bit late. So when he gets there, he stands there at the door and he observes. And of course, he can recognize George. He's the only Indian in the room. And he's reading a
right.
newspaper, holding it very close to his face. And he immediately, like Sherlock Holmes does, deduces this man is myopic, severely myopic, astigmatic. He could not have crossed the fields in the dark, slashed the cattle on a rainy night. This man is innocent. And, straight away he makes that deduction. And then he
I
also
was going
said,
to say just that, but then Conan Doyle beat me to it.
oh, there you go.
It's fabulous.
We need you in a trial scene. Going, nothing
It's
handsome,
quite
but
fascinating, Shabani. It's quite fascinating that when you see the pictures, and I'm a Parsee myself, and to see that somebody was caught in this whole web of madness, it just feels. I hope things change, and nothing really has. Also, the mustache, the bushy mustache. I saw pictures of George. He does have a very protruding dental work. I'm putting it as politely as possible. He almost looks like Freddie Mercury's granduncle.
You're the second person who said that
Who
to me.
Arthur Conan
He
Doyle
looks
must be
like
the
Freddie
first.
Mercury.
Arthur Conan Doyle must be the first, and I must be the second. Of course, Freddie Mercury was involved. Don't mind my joking around. We just keeping it
Absolutely.
light.
And oh, of course, the reason he couldn't even trim his mustache is because they wouldn't allow him scissors in the prison. They said, you can't have a nip. We don't allow it. So poor man went to this trial looking like, bushy mustache, a summer suit,
that's what he read
a
on
worn
page
out shoe.
101. Yeah.
Oh God, it
I read
was,
that bit. Yeah. It's
he looked
fascinating,
aside.
Shrabani. I'm fascinated about Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote fiction, got involved in this real case, the only real case, and happened to be with an Indian. And more important is, he got involved through an Indian father. And I feel in many ways, the way that I'm seeing this unfold is also a father story in some strange way. Apart from the mystery angle, there's a lot of caring, a lot of concern. There's family, there's hurt, and there's justice. If that's my reading of it, and there's so much in the book that, from what I've been, little that I've read, that I can't wait to finish it. So maybe tonight after this conversation.
Excellent. I hope you enjoy it.
very
Right.
much, Shrabani. Thank you very much
Well,
for asking me to do this. I'm really honored.
oh,
Thank you. And
thank
one big
you.
shout out to my friend Sarah, who was in college with me some 12 years
Aw.
ago when I was in college. I'm just, don't time flies. 12 years is a long time. Sarah, if you're listening, but thank you for connecting me with Shrabani. It's such an honor to
Aw.
talk to you, Shrabani. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for being here. I know you had to shoot today and you came dashing
Should
back.
I ask the questions so that there are
Sure.
Okay. Yeah,
many
go on.
questions? Can I?
Yeah,
Yeah, thank
go
you.
on. Sure.
So, I had one question. Whom would you like to make a movie? Like, whom would the director, like the first person you think of, a director or an actor? The question is to both, so you all can take it one by one.
Shrabani, go.
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, this is, I have this fabulous actor here. And if we had colorblind casting, he could be Arthur Conan Doyle, which we do have nowadays, isn't it? So, or he could
Yeah.
be Shapurji. Take your pick, Boban. What would you like to
Shapurji,
be?
Shapurji.
You'd be Shapurji. There
Shapurji.
we are. There you are.
See, and
We've done the
Shapurji is quite
casting.
a good-looking chap, actually. So I think it works.
It'll work. Good.
Yeah.
So we've done the casting. We'll find George. We'll find George along the way.
Great.
and
Yeah, so
and Arthur Conan Doyle.
there's
But he
one
asked
question.
about the director.
Director,
Who would be a
gosh.
good director for this?
Oh, there are so
Yeah.
many directors. I'm just such a fan of films. So many directors. I'm not naming any. I don't want to upset anybody. But yeah, I think this film is fun, and I think many directors would like to do it.
I'm sure.
Great. So,
You don't direct, do
Sarah
you,
had
Baman?
asked a question.
I'm going to be directing my first film this year. I'm debuting as a writer-director.
Okay,
in the next few months.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
fabulous.
I've just completed a script which I've been working on for some time now, and I will be directing it myself.
Oh,
So let's see what you think after you see my film.
fabulous. Okay, great.
Congratulations. And hope we all see it in theater and not only laptops or TV screens. So hope things goes back to normal.
Hope so
So
too.
second
Hope so.
question, yeah, and congrats, sir, on that. Second question from Sarah Bowman, sir. Bowman, sir, this is for you. The Parsees are peace-loving, but like George, don't give up. Do you agree? And Shrabani, for you, did George get married?
Good one. I have a short answer. No, he
You
didn't.
go for it.
Yeah, no, he didn't get married, sadly. So there's no little Georges for me to interview. No, the line died with them, very sadly. Moment.
So what was my question, and who asked the question?
Bowman. The Parsees
I
are
lost your
Sarah Day had asked a question.
Ah, dear
Sarah.
Sarah,
Parsees-
There we are.
Sarah Day.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What's the question?
The Parsees are peace-loving, but like George, don't give up. Do you agree?
Well, that's an easy thing to agree with. Yeah, I think Parsees are peace-loving, fun-loving, and food-loving, and a good laugh is always around the corner. But yeah, I think they have tenacity. They came and made a name and career themselves here in this country. And now when you think of it, even when you look in England, the number of Parsees have done pretty well in England, all over the world, actually. A small little community now of only 67,000 strong, tenacious little bunch of people who stand out for some reason. Who stand out because I think one would like to say because they're quirky and because they are fun-loving and they have wonderful disposition, outlook to life. But apart from that, I think industrious and like to be actors of change. When my grandparents, for example, they are Irani, they came much later from Iran as refugees. They came as refugees and they, opened restaurants and chiku farms and whatnot. And they knew that it'll take years before they even start earning money. But tenacious bunch. And here I am talking to Shrabani Basu. Wonderful, yeah.
In fact, the
Thanks for
first Indian British MP here in the UK was Parsee, Dadabhai Naoroji. He was elected in
Exactly.
1892. And the only
Right.
3 MPs of Indian origin pre 1947 were all Parsees. So, here's tipping the hat to Parsees. So
Yeah,
it was
always.
Mancherji, Bhavnagri, and then Shapurji, Saklatwala, 3 Indians and only
Saklatwala.
Parsees.
Saklatwala.
Saklatwala, yeah. Yeah, he was a communist. So he represented the Communist Party of Great Britain. And Dadabhai Naoroji was a liberal, and Mancherji Bhavnagri, he was a Tory. So covered, they covered all the
Wow.
3 parties.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
amazing,
Lovely. Nice to
amazing. Yeah.
nice to hear from you, Sarah. I'll speak to you later. Uh, I'll
Right.
complain
Good.
about Shrabani afterwards, after this session is over. Don't worry, I'll do all my complaints later.
We shall have a Parsee meal in London. There are lots of
We
Parsee
will.
restaurants.
Taking coals to
Right.
Newcastle. No, you some Bengali food for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Done.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Right.
I'll
We
do
take
the
another
next.
question.
Yeah,
Hmm?
it's from Harleen Dhawan. Hi, Shrabani. Your book sounds very intriguing. What was your research process like, and how long did it take? Was there anything you were surprised to find out during the process? Yeah,
Yeah.
Shrabani.
Thanks for that question. Yep. It took me 5 years. So I started in 2015 and we've only got here now. So, I finally finished the book last year. The last bit was done during the pandemic. Um, it was it was huge research because I had to go to find the police files, the Home Office files, these letters, and it was in 4 places: in Portsmouth, in Staffordshire, and then Great Wyrley, Birmingham, the National Archives in London, and then as a journalist, I have to go. Like Arthur Conan Doyle, I have to go to the spot. So of course, I had to go to the spot. I had to see this field, see the vicarage. You get a feel for the whole thing. It doesn't look like what it did 100 years ago, but you feel it. And I had a
Sure.
Pakistani taxi driver, and he said, "Why are you going to this church? Middle of the day. This mad Indian woman." So I said, "I'm going for something." And I said, "Are there any Indians here?" He said, "No, the only Indians here drive taxis. There's nothing here, all white." So 100 years ago, it would have been a white congregation that
Wow.
Shapurji preached to. And, that's his trouble began. So yes, I did piece together all these, archival material from over 4 years. Believe me, it was
Oh,
files like that. My study, I couldn't walk in my study. But anyway, we have the book now. So there we are.
So you actually lived the characters what you had for 4 years of your research. Great, and
Oh
that's
yes,
the work
yes,
that is seen here. So
I think
next
so. I
question
think
from
so.
Arpan. Yeah,
Yeah.
question from Arpan. I would suggest with the time we will take 2 more questions so that we
Okay.
also do justice. Why do you
Hmm.
feel writers of color receive such mixed reviews from the Western audience when writing about topics related to empire? And do you believe decolonization of the curriculum in the UK is actually a viable solution? So this is from Arpan
Right.
Chatterjee.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Thanks for that. I've been lucky. So all my books have been received very well here, whether it's about the war and, not, it was a very English war. So here's me, coming in there and saying Indians did their bit. Here's Noor Inayat Khan. Why have you forgotten about her? She was awarded the George Cross, and it's been received so well. As you've said, there's a memorial for her. She's now a household name. Victoria and Abdul was picked up here. It got huge reviews here. Sunday Times bestseller list, picked up by British filmmakers and turned into a Hollywood film. So I've been quite lucky. All my stories cover all these grounds, but they've been appreciated. So that's that bit. The second bit is decolonizing. I have spoken about this all the time on every forum, like a stuck record. I say we need to study these stories about empire, know that these Indians came here and fought in this war. This wasn't just your war. So I am like a stuck record. I've been going on for years, on this, on every platform, because I feel, and it's not just UK, I feel even in India, we don't know these stories. I hadn't heard of Noor Inayat Khan in India. I didn't even know that Indian soldiers fought in the First World War in India, that there were turbans in these trenches. So I feel there is a lot that we all have to know. And, Britain has to know, India has to know. We need to know our histories much more. So that's something I'm very passionate about.
and thank you for
Great.
that, Shrabani. Really, thank you for that.
It takes a lot of efforts to go to places, do the primary research, and then because it's 100 years ago, and then how do you bring all the facts of history together? So great work. Uh,
Thank you.
yeah, one question from Arun G. Did you had to
Mhm.
self-censor your work to avoid any trollings?
Self-censor to avoid? Sorry?
To avoid any trollings, like any trolls or
Oh,
like
no.
these
No,
days there
no.
are.
Yeah. No, 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 no. I don't
There's
care. I mean, if they're not
okay,
there, I don't know. I'm not on much social media. I just have a little Twitter account. I'm not on Facebook. So I'm not on
okay,
anything. So I just hide and I do my bits. And if somebody wants to troll, they can troll. But no, never. That's never my consideration. I write because I'm interested in the story. That's what drives me. I have to live with this story for 4 or 5 years. So I better love it and be passionate about it. And as I keep discovering things. I think somebody
hmm,
asked, was I surprised by anything I found? Yes, I was.
yeah,
Sorry, I forgot to answer that bit. I was. I was so surprised to see how passionate Arthur Conan Doyle was and how this police chief was leading him down the wrong road. That I didn't expect. That is such fun, and that's in the book. So you keep finding surprises as you go along.
great. Last question from Baghdad Bhumisha. What was the role of Churchill in his bid for compensation? So I don't know whether you would like to reveal it or yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, there's Churchill was the Home Secretary. So the first Home Secretary is Herbert Gladstone, who says no compensation. Then there are other Home Secretaries, and Arthur Conan Doyle keeps fighting for compensation. And one of the last, the governments change, and then Winston Churchill becomes the Home Secretary. And of course, he thinks, and Winston Churchill is a friend of Arthur Conan Doyle, so he thinks it's a done deal. But oh no, Winston has no time for George Dulci. So, and even later, there's David Lloyd George. Many years they keep campaigning for years. But I won't give away the whole story. But yeah,
Don't.
Winston has no time for him.
Great. Uh, one final question, like I always felt when we travel or when we get settled in a foreign land, do we need to sort of are a matter of belonging, or we need to establish ourselves to get that space in that community or people? So because your stories, what be it Abdul, be it Noor Inayat, or be it this, they always have have to sort of struggle to establish themselves. So what is your take on it?
Uh, they they don't really have to struggle. Well, I think Adalji. I think each story is different. So Adalji was a solicitor till he was brought down because of this case, but he was a successful solicitor. Young fellow went every day to the office, 8:45 train. Great early to Birmingham and back. So he was okay. I think Noor is again a very different story. She is brought up in
Hmm.
Paris. She comes here, joins the war effort, and then it's sort of two adrenaline powered 2 or 3 years where she's fighting this war. She's a secret agent. So I don't think she is facing all those problems as an Indian
Yeah,
woman. She is facing them as
and out.
it's a
Yeah,
difficult job. Yeah,
right.
so I think each story is different. I wouldn't put one class, but I'll talk about myself, because why do I go for these stories? Is also because I've lived half my life in India. So, I was 25 when I came to London. So I've lived half my life there, half my life here. For me, this interaction of India and Britain has, over all these years, whatever, empire, everything. So there are these hidden stories in there that I want to find out. So for me, both of these, this is now my second home. Or Delhi is my second home, whatever. Home is where you hang your hat, where your family is. So for me, it was important to always find these links between these two countries that have shaped my life and my outlook, really.
Sure.
So that's where I come in. But my characters have all walked different paths, and I call them my characters. They're real life people. But yeah, that's
Thank
how
you.
it is.
Mancha, any last comments from your side before we end this session?
I think I said it earlier when my
Yeah.
segment of the conversation was over. I'll just repeat it quickly. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for having me. It's an honor, Shrabani.
Ah,
I have this wonderful manuscript which I requested to sign for me. I'm going to read the rest tonight. But Shrabani and I have met actually. at the Nehru Center when I had gone to the London Film Festival with my film Well Done Abba.
Yes.
And it was noisy over there. So she says, let's step outside. So we sat on I sat on a scooter, and she did an entire interview with me then. And it's so wonderful to see Shrabani, who is, living in England and making a name for herself and making us all very proud.
Oh.
So I'm very, very happy and honored to have done that interview with you, and even more honored to have this conversation. In a sense, I'm interviewing you. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I'm a huge fan. So for me, this is like, it's lovely to be here at this platform. And yeah, we should meet in London.
Yeah. Thank you, Shrabani and Vaman sir. I guess this session wouldn't have completed because it's the mystery of the Parsee lawyer. So it wouldn't have been completed without you. And thanks for your inputs as well. And Shrabani, wish you all the luck, and you find many more such intriguing and interesting stories in your path. And you have to reach the stories to the world which are untold and unheard. So great. And the books are available at your nearest Crossroad bookstore and www.crossroad.in. Thank you once again, both of you, and it was a wonderful to interact with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you, Ashil. Thank you, Paman. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.